Hello and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel in the first place. Today we have a Tamaki Amajiki ex-listener and it's a Soulmate AU. I don't have too much to say other than if you're in the live chat, be respectful to the mods, so let's go ahead and get into it. Soulmates. Everyone had one. There were two ways you would know someone was your soulmate. A black patch on your skin and the first words they would ever say to you. When you both touch for the first time, the spots burst into color, and the words on your skin seem to glow as your soulmates say them before turning bright gold. As long as you and your soulmate are alive, the words stay gold. Some kids were lucky, getting their soulmates early on in life. They would spend their days talking and playing with these kids and becoming close friends until they were finally old enough to date. Some people didn't meet their soulmate until they were adults, and others never did. But you had given up on finding your soulmate long ago. Being the only kid in your school without a soulmate leads to quite a bit of bullying, mainly done by people in twos, of course. And by middle school, you hid the words scribbled on your skin in shame of being seen and hoped no one asked about your soulmate. While kids were proudly showing their golden marks, you were hiding out in the library or listening to music. When high school started, you finally seemed to escape from soulmates and everyone asking. Since everyone had already met theirs, no one bothered you. You didn't get close to many kids and hid from any sort of interaction in fear of getting bullied again. So when you transferred to UA for your last year of hero training, you didn't expect much. Just finish your school year, become a pro hero, and pray that you didn't get caught up with a soulmate. It wasn't that you didn't want one, it just seemed like a bother. Everyone acted as if soulmates were these great things, but you saw no point in it. Why would you need a soulmate if you were a hero? You would be busy saving lives, no time for a boyfriend or a girlfriend. But maybe this year would be different, and a part of you did hope that just maybe you would find your soulmate and finally fit in. If you found them, you could finally get friends. Hopefully your soulmate was nice. You couldn't handle meeting them only to find out they were a total jerk or some overconfident playboy. As always, you had your head down as you scurried the hallways of the large school. So far, no one had tried to talk to you. You didn't want to introduce yourself to the class and go through the humiliation of having kids rush up and try and talk to you and be your friend. You were kinda introverted, but it might have just been because of your past. Given the chance, maybe you could be a bit more outgoing. The safety of the classroom was just at your fingertips. So close, you could already imagine the sweet relief of sitting in your seat at the back, quietly doing your work, and no one staring at you or judging you. Perhaps they would see you for your quirk and power instead of your mark. That would be nice. Of course, nothing is simple, and you bumped into a tall, dark-haired boy before you could even open the door. His head turned to stare at you as you tumbled backwards and fell onto the floor. What a great way to meet your first classmate. Sorry, I didn't mean to get in your way, you mumbled as you rubbed the back of your head. His eyes widened as he backed away from you, shock and embarrassment on his face. His friends turned to stare at you, then back at him, then back at you confused. Geez, he wasn't even gonna help you up or say sorry. If you didn't look so scared, you might have been mad. Okay then. You stood up and grabbed your books from the floor, the boy watching you in silence as he shook in his spot. When you went to try and grab a book from his feet, your arms brushed against his ankle, and the next thing you knew, your arm was bursting into shades of violet and pink. The colors made your head spin and your arm feel warm. You leaned back onto your knees and stared at your arm in fascination. The boy was sputtering and shaking even harder. I'm so sorry, I can't believe I messed this up. He looked down in shame and tried to hide it behind his hair. As he mumbled, you could see the slight glow of gold coming up from your arm. Your soulmate. If he was scared before, he looked mortified now. Before you could tell him it was alright and that you didn't mind, he had scurried off out into the classroom, leaving his two friends behind smiling. As soon as he left, one of them grabbed you and helped you up. Wow, so you're Tamaki's soulmate? This is so cool. The blonde guy smiled brightly at you. I'm Mirio. Don't mind Tamaki, he's just nervous. You tilted your head and glanced into the classroom. The poor boy Tamaki was standing in the corner with his face pressed against the wall. There was dark aura surrounding him as he pouted and wallowed in shame. From here you couldn't really see his face, but you could see his slightly spiky blue hair and his tall body. You couldn't help but giggle. He was kinda cute. Weird, I never thought I would meet my soulmate, or to be honest, that he would be so cute. You tapped your chin as he tensed. You thought he was cute? You must be saying it to pity him, or maybe this was some sort of prank. The anxiety was already creeping up on him as the bell rang and everyone went to their seats. And of course, you had to sit right in front of him. 2 weeks later, Tamaki, you waved down the boy and smiled up at him. In only 2 weeks, your entire life had changed. You'd become friends with him and his friends almost instantly. You opened up, excitedly sharing your interests with the group, spending all your time with them, and even calling them your best friends. He was still nervous around you and barely spoke unless you talked to him. But boy, did you talk to him. It did make him happy in a way. It felt nice to have someone who cared. And you were also his soulmate, so you already wanted to be close to him. This did mean more socializing, but at least you didn't make fun of him. In fact, you were really nice to him. Hey, listener. He gave you a shaky smile as you walked next to him, both of you heading towards the school field. Since the temperature was slowly going back to warm, you would spend most of your lunches outside with the three. How are you? I'm good, how are you? You gently hooked your arm with him and rested your head on his shoulder. As always, he tensed under your touch and glanced around to see if anyone was nearby. PDA was one of his least favorite things. Normally, you weren't too clingy. He would die if you touched him too much. And since you both weren't dating, and you didn't even kiss him or hold his hand in public, but even things like this made him anxious and worried. If it made it happy, though, he would continue and go along. I'm fine, he murmured quietly as you tugged him towards one of the trees furthest from the school. This was odd. You normally sat by the school. Why were you taking him away from it? If you weren't holding on to him so tightly, he would have tried to run away and go back to the school, to just eat there with you and the others. That's good. Oh, I forgot to say, but the guys said that they had some work they needed to do, so it's just the two of us today. Alone? This can't end well. He already could think of 100 things he could do wrong. You dragged him down and sat next to him with a bright smile. At least being alone meant he was a little less worried about being judged. Then again, this could also be worse than being in public. Actually, I wanted to talk with you. You squirmed and looked up at him with a nervous smile. Oh, you were gonna tell him you hated him, weren't you? Or that you didn't like being his friend. Maybe you would slap him and tell him how worthless he was. What if you didn't want to be soulmates, or you like someone else? He couldn't handle losing you. As nervous as he was to talk about things like this, he found himself really liking you and your bright happiness. It reminded him a bit of Muriel, but you were calmer than him, of course. When you two were alone, you would be gentle and quiet so you didn't stress him out too much. The thought of you, his soulmate, leaving him for someone better, made his heart shatter. As if you could sense his dread and overthinking, not that it was hard to tell with his terrified look and saddened eyes, you grabbed his hands and squeezed them in your own. He looked at your hands and blushed. Tamaki, stop overthinking. I promise I'm not going to say anything bad. I just wanted to ask you out. Maybe come over for dinner. I could make your favorite food if you want. You closed your eyes, worried he was going to say no or tell you he wasn't interested. Or just, freak out and run away in a state of panic. After a few seconds, you felt him shakily wrapping his arms around you, a few tears falling on the top of your head. Tamaki, are you okay? I would love to. Smiling, you hugged him tightly and kissed him on the cheek before he could pull away embarrassed. A dark blush covered his cheeks as he stared down at you. Then, the scared look in his eyes was almost completely gone, a happy and love-filled look replacing it. Your soulmate, Tamaki Amajiki. The first date is supposed to be the easiest, but just the thought of a date made Tamaki break into a sweat. Maybe he was overthinking. Well, he definitely was overthinking, but maybe more than usual. I mean, it was just dinner with his soulmate, at your house, more than likely alone, with you. He was gonna have a panic attack, but he didn't have time for that. No, he had to get ready and show up at your house. After lunch that day, you had been extra happy and somehow even more clingy. You talked to him all day about the date and how excited you were for him to come over to your house and for you to show it to him. Of course, Mirio and Najiri seemed to already know about your plan to ask him out. When you and Tamaki went in for class, they practically tackled the both of you, asking you how it went, what you two were going to do, and everything such as that. It made Tamaki smile just the smallest bit. He could feel how proud the two of them were as he was getting a first date. He could only think about 2 negative things at the time. It wasn't until later that you both decided to hang out on Friday at your house. You sent him your address and told him that you'd be making dinner while your family was away for the weekend. Something about your uncle hurting villains with one punch and cyborgs. You spoke too fast for him to understand, and he didn't really want to bother you by asking, which led him to now, standing outside your door, shaking in fear. He spent an hour trying to find something to wear before calling up Mirio for advice, and he had to shower and muster up his courage. When he did finally leave the house, and he got to yours, he was 30 minutes early. So then, he spent the next few minutes trying to decide if he should just knock and be early, or wait the 30 minutes and show up on time. But what if you thought he was creepy for waiting outside your door? What if being on time was weird? But then, what if he showed up late and you thought he wasn't interested, or wasn't taking this seriously? Mirio's pep talk from earlier did not help. Before he could spend the next hour panicking, the door was swung wide open, and he practically jumped 3 feet into the air. He tensed as he looked down at you. You had dressed up for the date. Of course, why would you not? It was a date after all. He didn't dress up. Should he have? Hey Tamaki, you're exactly on time. I'm just finishing up cooking. Come right in. You grabbed his wrist and tugged him into the house. The door shut behind him as you dragged him past the kitchen and over to the front room. There was a breakfast bar dividing the kitchen and the front room so he could look in and watch as you worked. The house wasn't too big, but it was homey. You sat him down on the couch and then smiled quickly before rushing off back to the kitchen where you kept cooking. Across from him was a TV and 2 large bookcases next to it. They were filled with books and pictures of you and your family. In the younger photos, you seemed happy and bright, holding up medals and certificates. A few were you and some kids running around, but mainly photos. As the photos shifted, less of you started showing up as a middle schooler. Right at the end was a photo of you, Tamaki, Najiri, and Mirio outside of UA. It was the only photo he could see of you as a high schooler. After what looked to be 7th grade, you stopped taking photos, with and without your family, until the photo of you in the Big 3. While it was slightly odd, he could understand. You mentioned to him once before that you didn't do well in middle school, and barely had any friends. Thinking back, he had always had friends, and he couldn't think back to a time where he didn't have them. The rest of the living room was fairly blank, aside from a few pieces of art on the wall, and a small coffee table in front of him. He didn't move from his spot. I mean, you had sat him there, it would be rude to move, right? So he didn't see any more of the house, and perhaps that was for the best, if he just sat so that way he wouldn't mess it up. I'm done, and just a forewarning, I'm not that good at cooking, so I still hope you like it. You gently set 2 dishes onto the table with a proud smile. The small fried ball smelled amazing. 2 bowls of rice were next to it, and 2 glasses of water. I didn't know what you wanted to drink, and I can get you something else if you want. It's okay, this looks amazing. He gave you a small nervous smile. You sighed in relief and grabbed your chopsticks. He grabbed his and you both took the first bite. Wow, this is really good. You turned up and smiled at him with a blush. Thank you, I've been kind of practicing the recipe for a few days now. I wanted it to be perfect. He blushed and shyly smiled. You had learned the recipe just for tonight. Not only that, but you'd been practicing for days. No one had ever spent days trying to make something for him. Even if it was a simple meal, it made him feel that feeling again. He got it a lot around you. It was kind of like being nervous and worried, but it was different than being nervous around other people. Mirio said it was love, but it couldn't be that. I mean, you'd only known him for barely 3 weeks. But maybe that's why you two are soulmates. Did he love you? Did you love him back? Was he supposed to say something? Are you okay? You look more pale than normal. Did I rush things? Do you want to go outside and get some air? You gently touched his thigh with a worried look. Oh, no, he was worrying you. He wasn't supposed to do that. I'm okay. He cringed at his stutter, real smooth. Let's keep eating. You stared at him for a few seconds before nodding and gently grabbing his hand. Your hand squeezed his as you grabbed your chopsticks and started eating again. He tried to focus on eating, but he was still shaking so hard from holding your hand. And you were touching him, alone in your house. Maybe if he was more confident, he would have tried something or just went along with it. Your hand intertwined with his before you gently set your chopsticks back down. He watched as you shuffled onto the back of the couch, legs pulled up to your chest as you ran your thumb over his hand. There was a soft and calming feeling to the silence between you both. He shuffled back and leaned against the couch next to you. His hand gently gripped yours as you pressed your head against his shoulder. For once in his life, he felt his anxiety gradually loosen up. Being here with you made him feel safe. He was still worried about messing up and being alone with you, but you made him feel safe and relaxed, and like he would be less judged by everyone. It was like he was in a small bubble just with you. Hey Tamaki, you closed your eyes with a sigh. Yeah? Can I kiss you? He tensed as you nuzzled his shoulder again. A kiss? He had never kissed anyone, and as far as he knew, you hadn't either. Not a lot of people dated outside of soulmates. Plus, it wasn't like you were the kind of person to just go around kissing random people. We don't have to if you don't want to. I kinda just wanted to. Would he disappoint you if he didn't? He didn't want to do that. He wanted it to be perfect. You looked up at him as he looked down at you, and at that moment all of his thoughts left him. Your eyes were staring up at him with a look of worry and complete understanding. You were never going to force him to do it. If he decided he didn't want to, you would have let him have his way. There was complete love in your eyes as well. He shakily held your face between his hands and closed his eyes tightly. If he didn't open his eyes, he could get over his anxiety. It was just easier to close his eyes and let his body rest. Leaning closer, he felt a shiver run down his spine when your lips met his. It was softer than he thought. Your mouth moved against his, slow and gentle, as you gently placed your hand over his. His hand gently stroked your cheek as you softly ran your hands down his chest. It wasn't a feeling he thought he could get used to. It made shivers run down your body, and you gripped tighter. He loved the feeling of you in his lap, kissing him like this. All his. When you both pulled back, your eyes stayed closed for a few seconds, savoring the feeling as he watched you with lidded eyes. After a few seconds, you pushed your lips back against his. I think I might be falling in love with you, you muttered against his lips with a shy smile. No, I do love you. I love you too. He looked away and rubbed at the back of his neck. Your head rested against his chest as he nervously rubbed your hips. Every once in a while, you would lean up and kiss him or tell him you loved him to make him blush. By the time he needed to get back home, you were practically begging him to stay the night. Your arms wrapped around his neck as he swallowed and looked between the door and you. So many nice things had happened that night that he didn't want to risk messing any of them up. It's fine, come over tomorrow and I'll take you out to the movies. Or something like that. Or we could just hang out here again. It's up to you. You traced his jaw with a small smile. Whatever you want. You kissed his cheek and sighed. As much as you wanted him to stay over, he had to go home. But tomorrow, you'd get him to stay with you no matter what. You waved him goodbye as you walked towards his house. After watching him for a few seconds, you turned back and went into the house, a love-stricken smile on your face. Alright, so that's the end of this one. I hope you enjoyed. Thank the chat moderators if you're in the live chat. Do it. Anyways, this one was longer because I felt bad for, taking a break. Anyway, I don't have too much to say. But look forward to like 6 videos a week. I'm gonna take a day break so that way I'm not pushing myself too hard. Anyways, music link, fanfic link, Discord link, Amazon wishlist link, and thumbnail art link will all be in the description. Go ahead and check those out. If you need to refresh yourself on the live chat rules, they're in the comments. Alright, I hope you have a great rest of your day, night, whatever, and goodbye!